Welcome gamers to Galactic Civilizations 4 Supernova. My name is DasTactic. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this series. And thank you to StarDoc for actually sponsoring this particular series. So yes, be aware this is sponsored content. I'm under no instruction not to say specific things. So I'm just giving my honest appraisal of how things are, but I'm thoroughly enjoying the game. I've always enjoyed Gal Civ, and it is a beautiful looking game. Like the user experience with the game is awesome. There are some things I think that are missing from it, which we've already spoken about. One thing is you can't actually access the information about your particular civilization at this point in time. This is early access, by the way, so that will probably change fairly quickly, I would imagine. So there'll be a lot of the things we see here may change, even within the coming days or weeks. Who knows? Who knows? But the only way at the moment that we can do it, if we're at war, we can actually go into diplomacy, and we can then sort of see the enemies. Actually, they're now enemies with the yaw as well. But we do get a summary when we hover over our group, where the Imperial Ascendancy is sort of where we actually are. We're at war with the Drengen, the mighty Drengen, and it just goes in through our abilities. We can then just press Shift and start to sort of see exactly what our abilities actually are. But we don't need that for this particular episode. For this episode, we are going to be looking at the ship designer in particular. And to trigger that, I'm thinking that you can build special equipment using your resources up the top here. So I think we'll design a ship that makes use of those resources. So these are the special resources: mainly Durantium, antimatter, Promethean. I think you can build some things out of as well. There's another one called Illyrium. I'll just click on done and just get out of there. Illyrium is this one over this side. So we've got Illyrium back in through that side. We've got more Illyrium there, which the Drengens have under their control. These are mainly used for beam weapons. Antimatter, which we see back over through here, is mainly used for missile weapons. And the Durantium, which is in through here, can be used, I think, for kinetic weapons. And they're the three different weapon types. We'll have a look at those when we get into the actual game itself. I think the easiest way to explain how combat works, how ships work, what the different types of defenses, etc. are, is to actually just go into the ship designer and do it. But before we do that, we've just got to have a quick look and see where we actually stand in terms of the tech levels. Now, one thing, I was going to wait till I had the cruiser before I started to actually design the ships, and I do want to do that. So we're 6 turns away, unless we play in our vault. We actually have a precursor archive which will complete the current research. So click done. We now actually have the battlecruiser doctrine. This unlocks the cruiser hull and the cruiser module. So it sort of allows us to, the cruiser hull is used to this is the aspect, or the doctrinal aspect of the actual cruiser itself in combat, and sort of how it then is to operate. Whereas the cruiser module is how we then go and construct them, which is what we're going to be doing today. So this is just purely for construction, and not really, it doesn't really do anything other than just allow you to build a cruiser. But the cruiser is actually how it then plays in the game. So that's sort of what the cruiser hull versus the cruiser module actually is. We'll just choose a new tech. Now, flexible bulkheads will actually increase the capacity, but while we're here, let's just see where we are with the combat and just see what we could be looking at getting. So if we just go to the tech navigator and have a look at combat, because that's really what or warfare, that's what we're going to be looking at through here. Now, we've got certain things that we actually have already now got. So we've come down into here now. We've got the planetary invasion. We haven't got the flexible bulkheads yet. Actually, do we have that one? I don't know if we've got that one. We've just picked up this one in through here. I find it a bit hard to figure out which ones we've got and which ones we don't have. These are definite ones that we don't have. This is one we don't have. I think if this bit here is coloured, so it's one of these UX type things where I can now see I don't have that one. I do have that one. These are not available for me to research. This one is available for me to research. So that's the way the colour scheme is actually then working. Now, there's an awful lot you can do in this game over the course, as you start to sort of go and do different things. And you'll see that there's The tech is sort of arranged in lines that then sort of lead on to other things, like the mobilization will lead to the invasion, will lead to the Marines, the soldiers, killbots, etc. If we go down this one, so the battle cruiser will lead to the more capacity, so we can actually squeeze more onto the actual ships, which will lead to even further capacity, which will lead to the battleships, which will then lead to repair bays and logistics. We can actually have bigger fleets, etc., etc., etc. Then the dreadnoughts, back up through here we get the dreadnought hull, dreadnought module, and so that's pretty much the largest of the ships. We then have carriers as well, actually, so we've got the carrier and carrier module as well, Terra Stars. So that's just sort of more the ship. So this particular line is much more about the actual ships that we're getting. And so we've just gotten the battle cruiser, and that was after getting the what's that, when capacity went up by 10%. This one unlocked the frigates. So we unlocked the frigates fairly early. Shuttles will unlock then the that will unlock the, actually that's still, I think that's just, yeah, basic fighters and bombers. I think it's the way that one sort of does work. All right, so that's the space doctrine with our ship types and soldiers. Then we actually have defenses back and through this other side. So this is defensive studies. This one allows us to get hull plating. Evasive tactics just gives us like a weapon jammer that we can then sort of bring back in. And it's worth having a look at this if when you're going to be designing the ships. Then we've got energy deflection theory. So this one is going to give us basic shields, and basic shields will protect us from beam attacks. Be aware of this sort of stuff. So the way it sort of works is well, I'll show you that actually when we get in there. But like beam, like if we attack with a beam, and we've got like again the different weapon systems that we have in through here, we then actually have like a basic beam, kinetic, and missile attack. You can see it in the listing through that side. So we get our basic weapon kit in through this side, and then it splits off into 3 different classes, as will ultimately the different types of defenses, I believe. Actually, maybe it doesn't anymore. I thought it did. Maybe it doesn't. Okay, so I thought there should be 3 different types of defenses, as well as 3 different types of weapons. So the directed energy weapons are your beam attacks, and so in this case we don't actually have this one. We don't have railguns, but we do have the Avenger missile system, and we do have the improved missile targeting back into here as well. And so what this one then will actually, no, we don't have. Yeah, we do have that one. We don't have this one. God, this color scheme is a little bit confusing, actually. I wish it was a little bit different, actually, just to sort of make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. So these we don't actually have yet. So this is going to give us the better beam weaponry. So this one unlocks the battle cruiser. It's like the battle cruiser MO. I'm not sure what the MO actually stands for, but I mean we've already got our battle cruiser. But I think that's a type. That's a design type that has been already designed for use in the game. So there's all these different types. There's a kit that you create essentially, and so when you see MO or whatever the name might be with that sort of symbol, like. Come on, press shift and zoom across. It's not hovering there this time. Anyway, that first one at the top is showing that that's actually a design that's been designed for that particular tech using the battle cruisers. It then comes up with a couple of other different types of weaponry, a neutron emitter and an enhanced particle beam. So they're different types of weapons we can then put on it. It then leads to photonic alignment. Photonic alignment then leads to an overall beam attack of plus 10%, and that leads to plasma beams, and plasma beams are further back into here. So we don't have very much in the way of our weaponry just yet. The next one down here is our kinetics, so it allows construction of basic kinetic weapons. This one will give us the railgun, and doesn't lead to any actual unlocks in terms of the types of pre-designed ships. And then we've got the Avenger missile system back and through this side, which will then allows construction of basic missile weapons. So we've got the Avenger and also the Harpoon missile. Now the Harpoon missile will make use of a special resource, that special resource being antimatter. So that is an antimatter. The Harpoon is an antimatter weapon. We also have the improved missile targeting, which then improves, so missile attacks go up by +1 and the missile attack goes up by +10%. It does lead to the Phoenix missile system, which then leads to like different types of unlocks there with different sorts of equipment we can then place into the ships even further along. So I think we'll specialize in we'll go with 4 of the missiles. We'll make a missile cruiser. Essentially, was what we'll build for the defenses. So this one unlocks advanced armor. Will protect our ships from kinetic attacks. So this is against kinetics. The energy deflection. Basic shields will protect us from beam attacks. Now there is another one, a third one. And I know that we'll have it. I'm not sure exactly where it comes in, but the third one is, and it might even be under the railgun type thing, where we end up with like point defense weapons essentially, which are against missiles. So we've got a defense that will then work against specific types of attacks. And the way it works with this is, let's just say you've got a rating of say 10 for a beam attack, and you're fighting against another ship that's also got a rating of say 10 in shields. Then it means that there'll be a dice, like it'll be a random number rolled between 1 and the number of the actual, of whatever the weapon actually is. So let's just say on average it's 5. Then with the shield, they can also then roll between 1 and 10, and whatever the difference is the damage that's then done to the ship. The difference with this is, and where it becomes a little bit nuanced, if you were attacking with a railgun that had a strength of 10 against a ship that only had shields on it, then and it still had the 10 rated shields, it would be the railgun would still roll between 1 and 10 to get its number, to sort of see what the attack was that got through. But the shield down in here would be this. It would only apply the square root of whatever the actual number was. And so if it's if you've got a rating of 10, let's just roll it down to say 9, just to make it nice and easy, because the square root of 9 is 3. So it would only really be able to roll between, like it would only be able to defend between 1 and 3 if it rolled a dice. So in that case, it still protects a little bit, but not a hell of a lot. So I hope that makes sense. It's sort of important to know how that works. It means that you're better off getting a little bit of all the defenses rather than specializing a hell of a lot in one, except if you're playing against somebody who you see all of their ships are all using massive missiles or whatever it might be. Then you want to be pumping up the others, but you do want to get, I think mathematically you're better off getting like a little bit of all the defenses and do that one sort of fairly cheaply. Add a little bit extra on for the one that you're trying to protect mostly against. In this case, we will protect against missiles. But then as far as your attack goes in, if they've done the same thing, then it doesn't matter what you do with your attacks, if they've sort of spread their defenses across. But if they have actually gone and done a very specialized defense, then you need to take that into account. So in our case, well, let's have a look. Just click on done in through here. I hope that explains. The tech tree is brilliant, the way it sort of does work. And then the way that, again, the intricacies of the combat is all done at this point in time. I find that I would love to have a bit more impact close to the actual battle itself, but most of the actual battle logistics, or like the battle aspects, the strategy of the game comes through this componentry of it. So let's just click on done. You don't have to know it, but it's if you do, you can start to tweak things and just play a little bit more lit than than by not playing it. If you don't design your own ships, then certainly there's going to be ships available for you to use. But anyway, in this case, we will certainly design our own ship in this case. So the Drengen, we've destroyed a lot of their fleets. There's one ship in through here. And if we have a bit of a look to see what it's actually got on board. So if we just go and have a look at this guy, in fact, we can sort of see down through here. It's using missile attack. It's the only thing it's got, actually. So it's just using a missile attack. That's all we have to really worry about. It's not even using any sort of real defenses. So it's not very well protected. Let's get into the actual ship design now, because now that we've got all of that out of the way, Actually, we've got planetary adaptation. I didn't want to do that one. I think I will actually go with flexible bulkheads. Get more of those. I mean, we could go back and get more of the other ones that we just saw there before. You know, the where was it? The railguns. You know, get more kinetics if we wanted to. Yeah, there's a heap of them there that we sort of had access to. But anyway, let's just go flexible bulkheads in this case. That will just give us even more capacity for our ships, so we can then redesign and then create like a slightly different version as the capacity comes up. Right, back into design. So what we do is we go back into the forge, back in through this other side. We open up the ship designer, and we have whatever we've actually already unlocked will then be presented to us. Now, where the game has improved a lot in recent versions of it is that the ship class now actually has a big bearing on what the ships can then go and do. And so it's not just a matter of putting modules on to make that the ship class itself. So you've got less choice, but you've got more options with the way that you then construct your actual ships and your fleet. So there's more you can do with them. For example, the probe is unlimited, so it's actually got with unlimited range. And so the probe class of ships itself has it's not constrained by the actual the limits of where your other ships can then sort of go. So you've got in your miner, your flagship, your fighter, bomber, frigate, cruiser, which we've now just unlocked back in through this other side, colony ship, etc. So they've all got, each class now has a very different role that it performs in your empire. It makes it much more immersive, and it works so much better. So rather than just having a hull that you attach a colonizer to, and that then becomes your colony ship, you have to basically have a colony ship in through here. So, and sort of starting through this particular aspect and then work with this, which you think, okay, well, that doesn't sound all that sounds more limiting than exciting. Where it actually gets good is actually when you do get back into your combat ships. So we've got like fighters and bombers, frigates and cruisers, which we've unlocked so far. If we start with a fighter, for example, we can just sort of see these actually have got targeting priorities. And this is another part of the strategy of how you then build your fleets. Again, I wish that some of these choices were more close to the setup, but at the moment, a big part of what you do in combat comes down to what componentry you've put into your ships and what class of ships you're actually using. And so in this case, we've got these are fighter ships, small maneuverable ships. They basically have got and they're targeting priority. So fighters, their main priority is to gain fighter superiority around in the battle itself. And so their first targets are going to be bombers and fighters, bombers then fighters. After that, they'll then target the frigates, and then after that, they'll then target the cruisers and the large ships, the capital ships. If we go to the bomber, it's the opposite. So it goes, these are designed to try to take down the big ships. So think of Star Wars, like where you've got like you've got some ships that are sort of trying to protect the bombers as they go into to kill the Death Star. The bombers are going after the capital ships first, the cruisers, the frigates, the bombers and fighters are the last thing that they actually then aim for. So bombers, if you're coming up against a whole range of bombers, you need to have a whole range of fighters to actually fight against them. Or you need to have frigates, which are also, frigates will then go for bombers and fighters, but where they switch, where the fighter will then just go to the next biggest one along, the frigate starts off by trying to get fighter superiority and make sure that everything's protected from the fighters, and then goes after the capital ships. So then goes after the biggest ships. The biggest ships do get targeted. The cruisers start off with going after capital ships, then down to cruisers, frigates, bombers and fighters. So almost the same as what we have with the bombers, but these are much bigger ships. Of course. So it's and this intricacy with the class of the ship now makes the game again so much more interesting with what's going on. So I love that there's all these little bits and pieces. You don't have to know it. I think it enhances your enjoyment when you do, even if you're just aware of it, but still use the automated parts within the game just to make sense of it. Anyway, we've spent nearly 20 minutes actually just going through these aspects, but we're going to build ourselves a new cruiser. So design a new ship back and through here. You can see there we've got like equipment space. I'll just quickly go through what these actually are. This is your hit points, the 44 hit points. The tactical speed won't really worry us too much. Now this is going to happen more in the actual combat itself, like the acceleration. We compare that to like a fighter where the acceleration is just dramatically high. So these are much more maneuverable. And it does matter because the actual weapon types also, the kinetic weapons are short range weapons, the beams are medium range, and the missiles are long range. So again, slow ships with missiles makes sense. So we've got a medium-sized warship with support for multiple weapons. Got equipment space over through here. This is the capacity. This changes over time. So as we get more capacity, like when we get the next one, we'll be able to have another 3 that we can then add on things onto it. So we can just keep on increasing what our ship design actually does do. Combat ability, yeah, there's no specific combat ability. So I don't know if these have got, yeah, so the fighter has got plus 50% evasion. The bomber has also got high evasion. This one here, the frigates have got plus 50% accuracy, but the cruiser is just a brute attack, like just a bit of a brute. Sort of, it's there just to be the start of the capital ships, essentially. So again, these ship classes matter, and they're fun, and they actually do have an important role now in the game, more than they've ever had before. So let's go and start a new design. We can show ship designs. Actually, that's back in here. So we do actually have some battle cruiser designs that have already been done for us. We can click these on to see what they actually look like. And I don't know if we can use these, use this design to start a new design. I'd be tempted to do that, to be honest, with what we're going to then do. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start from scratch. I do want to show how to do it from scratch, but I prefer to do that at the end of this episode, just because it's only going to be really applicable to people who enjoy building the ships. And I know there's a lot of you that are in that category. I think everyone enjoys the fact of doing it, but I don't want to be putting that in front of the important bits about what happens with the actual ships itself. So I can actually go and use this as a basis for it. Now this one has come in with a few different types of things in it. So this particular battle cruiser, you can sort of see through there, it has it's got a rating of 7. It's got a whole range of different things in here. So it's coming in with some basic lasers, 2 lots of lasers. It's then got a Helios rockets. This is missiles. It's got a cannon, so this is a kinetic cannon back and through this other side, and a beam attack. Now there may be some other things in there as well, but let's actually just go and use this one as a look. If we have a look at the next one down, actually, this one is the Battle Cruiser Mark II has actually come in with harpoon missiles. Now one thing you'll notice with this one is the weapon details. It's got an antimatter cost of 1, and so we have to be wary of that, because that antimatter, we only have 5, and we're only producing 1 every 5 turns. So if we bought this ship, we've got 3 of those particular missiles on this ship, which means that every single ship of this is going to cost me 3 antimatter. In fact, if I hover over that one, you can see there the antimatter cost, which is right in here, is 3 because of those 3 components. So we have to be careful of that, but we still want to be making use of this. And so we have to sort of think, okay, how many of these ships are we going to end up having, and how quickly are we going to be wanting to sort of bring them into the actual combat? Now, I don't know, maybe 2 would be okay, but 3 is a bit too much rich for me. So let's not use this design. This one, which one looks better? Again, I've got to use the class, and this is the class back over here. This is the cruiser class. If I went into here, I'd just be building a frigate. I don't mind this one actually for the look of it. It looks pretty gnarly. So let's go and use this design, and then we'll just make some little tweaks to it. And this components on here, I can just show you sort of how that one works as well. So we'll just go and use this design to start a new design. So I'll bring this one across, and so this is going to be a cruiser. Choose the ship class for the updated design. So I can either make this into a flagship or a cruiser. We'll just go with a cruiser, and we'll start the new design. And so here we have it in here. I'm going to ditch all of these things, and just go and click on drag on these. Now you'll notice that the design hardly changes at all. The capacity is all about the equipment. It doesn't matter what I do. This is purely cosmetics. It doesn't have any bearing, like the shape, the size, all of those things don't have any bearing. It's the class. It's only the class that matters. Yeah, so even things like if there's bits like massive areas and things can hit it easily. It doesn't take that into account. It doesn't care about the overall, the footprint of the actual ship in space. It literally just comes down to what sort of class it is as to how it will perform. So this is purely the way it looks and the way that you want it to actually then go and look. So let's just go and make a few little changes to the cosmetics. I think it's easy to change the cosmetics first and then add your equipment to it. So let's just go back up into here. This is cosmetics mode. We can then start to add in all sorts of different componentry to it. There's small hull parts. We can add any of these parts onto an actual ship. Like for example, this resistance model in through there is fairly large. But let's just go and add this. And if we find any little spots that sort of that work for it, like this one in here, if I just go and click that in there, you can see it's come off on the side. I'll just right click on it and then just go and click back on it, in it again. It'll be the very last one that's been added. So that's the bit that's been added into there. And you can see that we can then, when we click on a piece, it then comes up with like the scale, the rotation. We can do things, for example, like flip it different ways. We can flip it vertically, for example. I like the idea of that one. That one looks pretty cool. We can flip it horizontally or make a symmetry across that axis and make it so that it's going to be sort of like more of a missile bay. I feel that sort of would be fairly appropriate. The scale of it is probably a little bit too large. So we'll, we've got a few different things in there as well where we've got invert the materials. Yeah, that looks more in keeping with what we've actually done. So we've just inverted the materials on the actual piece. But play around with all of these things. We actually have proportional scaling. We also have, we can do it without the proportional scaling. So we can start to sort of drag these things down, make it a bit narrower if we wanted to. The Y, just make it a little bit more sort of squat. And then the Z, again, we can sort of make it go much bigger or wider, whatever we want to do. I'm happy with that one there. So you can change the look of it dramatically just with what you're doing through here. You also have then rotation on the parts themselves if you're wanting to do that one. You can also offset them as well. So you can sort of go and set them so that they sit in different parts from that particular area. I'll just get that one back down to 0. You can just change these numbers. I won't spend much time with this, but you can imagine. I'll show you afterwards how you can then sort of set up something like a lot more intricate than this. The Y, I think the Y goes, that goes in and out. That's what I wanted. Just wanted that in a little bit closer, just into that central area there. And that'll do me. So this will be our big missile cruiser, and I won't do anything else with this sort of stuff, and then we'll just go back out. But there's a heap of stuff you've got to play with, and this is so much more intricate and involved and interesting than what it ever was before. There's just so many different bits and pieces. So go to town, have fun. It's there'll be a lot that will, when the workshop does open up for the game, there'll be a lot that will then get added into the workshop, I'm sure. But these look great, these designs. So we'll just come back out, and that's the look of the ship. Looks awesome. That looks fantastic. So I can sort of move it around, and then it'll then just rotate from wherever I happen to sort of push the actual ship in space. All right, so let's now go and deck this one out with the different equipment that we can then go and place on it. So just going through very briefly, we've already gone through the tech of what we can do with the different types, and you can see there we've got like beam weapons, missile weapons. We've got enhanced missile weapons, which is our harpoons, and kinetics. When you see the word enhanced, it means that it's actually got a cost of one of the special resources. So we haven't unlocked anything for beams or kinetics yet. So we only have cannons and Gauss cannons back and through here. We've got lasers and particle beams back and through this other side. So I'm thinking I'm going to mainly specialize in these missiles. So when we hover over the harpoon missile, I definitely want to be using, and so I'll probably use these on the main part of the ship. So I'll put 2 of these on the ship, and one thing you'll notice in here is it's got a missile attack of 4. The missile range is long range, 5,000 kilometers. If we go back to these other ones as well, they're going to also be 5,000. So the missile range doesn't change. The particle beams have got a range of 1,000. These are mid-range. And then we've got the cannons, which are short range, 400 kilometers. So that's what these sort of really are. So these are, I guess, more, are they more accurate? The missile accurate is 50%. The cannons and the kinetics are more 67%, and then these are 90% accuracy. So the beams are good, but I think that the damage that they do is less. You can see it's only got like 1 attack, So they've got less, whereas the cannons are going to do... Actually, it's only one as well. I thought it did more. But I think these fire faster. Kinetic cooldown is fast. Yeah, these ones fire every 3 turns. So, and then these fire every 6 turns. Missile cooldown is 6. So these sort of weapons do take a lot longer to fire. So the kinetic weapons are good, as long as you can close the gap. So these are great on fighters and things like this, whereas the lasers and the missiles are probably better on these bigger sort of slower ships. So let's go and add in some harpoon missiles. I hope that's all making sense. So when we have a look at it, the other thing we want to look at in through here is the attack. So missile attack is 4. So it's going to do 4 damage for this particular attack. If we have a look at the other ones, these Avengers do 2, Helios rockets do 2, and the hypersonic missiles only do 1. The other thing we have to be considering, probably more than anything, is the mass. This is a 5. This one is a 5. That one there is a 5, and that one's a 5. So really it's just whatever's going to give us the best bang for buck. This one here has got a manufacturing cost of 9. This one here has got a manufacturing cost of 6. But everything else looks like it's pretty much the same. Yeah, so it delivers a nuclear payload. Missile weapons are slightly weaker in battle. This one here is propels explosive projectiles with intense thrust, capable of significant damage. The missile weapons offer a balanced mix of range and destructive potential. That's the Sun Scorcher Helios rockets. Yeah, manufacturing cost goes up. I'm not sure what the difference is there. If the actual missile itself is faster, the Harpoon missiles delivers an antimatter payload, so missile weapons are slightly weaker in battle, but can be used to attack enemy fleets at range, which is sort of what we want to be doing a lot with these ships. So maybe we'll sort of put in a couple of the harpoons. Now, when we bring it in, we can do some different things with this. If I just go and drag it into the actual area in here, it will just place it any old place, and we don't want to do that. What we want to be doing is we want to be coming across and placing it specifically somewhere on the actual design if we can. It's just not going to do it. If I click and drag it in, it's then going to do it. But if I go and actually click on somewhere, I can then place it exactly where I want it to be. So if I place it there, for example, it puts a second one over there, but it's not 2. I've only got the one that's actually active. So just be aware of that as well. If something's been mirrored, like it has in through here, it will still throw both of them on. And so let's now just go and place another one. We've got another one that we can place in the front there as well. So let's just go and do that. So you can see there we've used up 5, and if we put the next one in, we're still going to have a lot of space left over. So we throw that one in. At the moment, our combat rating is 7. Throw 2 of them on. The combat rating is still 7 as such, but we've now got 2 of these particular missiles on board the actual ship itself. So we've actually got a lot more firepower than what we had there before. We could put even more missiles on. We've got a lot of space in here, but I wouldn't mind just getting some of these particle beams, I think. So these are, the mass is smaller on the particle beams. So let's just go and throw some particle beams on the side. So I've now placed 1 particle beam in. We're up to 14. This is our offensive capabilities. Let's just go across and have a look at defenses. We do actually have some hull plating. We will be wanting to put this one on. This one just gives us, it's going to use up 3 mass. It's going to give us a bit of armor, an armor rating of 5. Let's just go and throw that on as well. These often you can just sort of hide these around the place. Where is it going to go? You can also come back in and change the size of these. Do we want to get more than that? Yeah, probably will actually. Just want to play up the top there. I'll just do it this way. See if I can squeeze it on there. There we go. Just gives us two armor, so we're just going to have a little bit more protection. And next one across is the drives. So this one we can then do different things, like where we can actually boost the get +1 moves. At the moment we've actually got 10 moves, which is actually pretty damn good. Like, we don't really need to do this one. This one will give us 2 moves with a 4.4 mass. Unshielded thruster will reduce our hit points by 20%, but give us 3 moves, which you don't want to do. Promethean drive is +4 moves, and we're using Promethean there to do that one. And this one is a +1 fleet move as well, which uses 1 Promethean, but uses 10 mass, which is not. We've only got 6 left over on what we've got here. So with 6 left, We also have special modules, your mining lasers, etc. Hull support. We've already used those. This is the mass is 4.4. Actually, this one gives us hit points. So that would then get us pretty close to the limits if we grab that one there. But the hit points, I'm thinking, are actually pretty good with what we've got. So we don't really need to be using this one. Targeting computer. So this one here, mass of 5, distributes a series of quantum nodes into a wide arc to create a dynamic ratio. So the beam attack, so the missile accuracy goes up by 5%. The high mass is probably a bit much on a ship that's just ultimately going to be a medium range ship. So I think that what we'll do is we'll probably just go back and have a look and see, can we squeeze in just some other... we've only got one particle beam. We can throw another particle beam on if we wanted to. Or even a cannon. No, nothing's going to get close to us, I don't think, I hope. So let's just go in with a particle beam. So this will be the first tech generation, and then this will be the next one that we actually end up getting. So the Gauss cannon, this, so I'm thinking the particle beam, that's a mass of 4. Helios, the Avenger rockets are a mass of 5. We go with the beam. Maybe we'll go with the beam. That makes it sort of a bit more of an all-round type attack ship. So we'll grab that guy and then just figure out where we place it. So I'll probably place that in the front of the ship as well. So we do actually have a position. So it's often hard to get these unless you sort of put space in behind it. Now, see how that one hasn't come across the other side, because this is just a single component. So what I can do is I can actually just go and grab that particular piece, have it selected, and then just go and tell it, okay, look, toggle the symmetry. And it may be that we're thinking, okay, that's also the scale of that's a little bit off. Let's just reduce our scale down a little bit. Might do the same on these as well. The aesthetics are super important. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Doesn't change what they do. It's just purely cosmetic. Now we're up to 24 of 26. That'll be okay. We can eventually squeeze more things in as we get more capacity, but this then at least sort of shows the like we've now sort of got ourselves this missile cruiser. So we'll save this guy. This will be our first one, and so we'll just do a save. I don't think there's much else we need to worry about. We do actually have 44 hit points, which is fairly high. Combat rating of 8, so the combat rating is up there. So we've got a beam attack of 3.3, a missile attack of 9.6. We've got shield strength of 3, evasion of 2, and armor of 13. So this is, I think that the shielding, etc., is sort of natively within the actual ship itself. So, but yeah, we've got like the high armor that is going to protect it a little bit. So we do actually have a little bit in through there, and we may be able to ditch some of these again at some other point, but they're pretty cheap. So let's save this guy. Yep, so it's going to chew up 6 logistics in our fleets. I'm happy with this one. It's going to cost me 0.3 credits per turn to have these ships. I probably only really want to have maybe 2 of them at this stage. So we'll save it. Eventually, we're going to end up with massive fleets. This is the sort of the start of big things. So we'll call this one the missile cruiser, I think. And missile cruiser M1. Mark 1. Okay, so we'll save that one. Don't know if this is. No, I'm not sure if this actually is randomly generated based on what we build. Save ship design as ship design. Save design as what else we've got? Ship template. No, we'll just make it as a design. So we'll save that one away. So here we go. I have a little message down there saying design a ship, first of many. Yes, it is fun doing them. So we've now got ourselves our own design, missile cruiser Mark 1 back and through here. Actually, that's it's now in our featured ship. So this is our missile ship. We've got this sort of rotating thing. I will at the end of this sort of show how that one does work, but let's just click on done at this stage. and just come back out. I do want to show a little bit other things we can do with the ship designer. So we've got the frigates now being built in through here. Let's go and ditch a lot of these and build ourselves that particular ship. We want to get a couple of these. So we now actually have the missile cruiser should be in the list. There it is. So the missile cruiser. It's going to take 11 turns to build. And you can sort of see in through here the armor rating of 13, the missile attack of 9.6. So it's just specifying the specifics of what it can actually then go and do. This one's got extra shielding, which we didn't actually have at this stage. So I think we'll take our designing. Why not? We'll build one of these. And so this is going to use up the antimatter. We've now used up 2 of it. We'll build a second one. And we're down to 1 antimatter now. So we've now got both of these now queued up. Just click on done. And when does the next one come out? See, when does it show us? 1 turn. Okay, so 2 turns and we start to then build these other designs. Now, the other thing I wanted to show, so I'll just save where we are, and then we'll come back out and I'll show you the other way of looking at building ship designs if you're really into it. So back in the main menu, and this is more complex because everything is open to you. So if you're doing it for a game, then do it the way I just did it and do it from within game. But from here, you can actually go and set up designs with whatever you want. So you can set up your different, I won't go through this in too much detail, but you can basically build an overall look to the type of ships that you want. Like if you wanted to create like a whole class of ships, a whole fleet of ships that you sort of want to have and play with, you can do it from within here, but it's still launching the ship designer as such. I'll just come back in. And so these will then still have basic sort of ships back in through this other side. But if we go to a new design now, and I'll show you sort of like from something completely from scratch as an example, you'll notice that there's going to be new things in here. So we've got the cruiser, we've now got the battleship back in through here as well, which is now a bigger ship. And we then have a dreadnought as well, which is a huge hull back in through this other side as well. Now, some of these will also then be coming in. I'm not sure where which one of these ends up being the carrier, but there is a carrier module you can place on the ships. In fact, I think any of these can be ultimately. But the carriers, they do chew up a fair bit of space. Anyway, let's just say that we wanted to build a battleship that was going to be a carrier. We would then just go and start a new design. And we can start, actually, if we cancel that one, this will actually show you want to, yep, hang on. Do that again. I don't use this because it's so much easier in game to just do what you need to do. So we go new design, create freeform design. This then starts from absolute scratch. So the first thing we want to do is we've got the available hulls we then have available to us. And so we're just going to sort of start with like one of the larger hulls. We can either start with like just a large starter, which is that sort of cube that we can sort of see in the middle there. So it's literally just a start from complete scratch, or we can use one of these ships depending on what groups we've actually loaded in before we get started. So we've got like battleships in here that we can bring in as a starter point if you're wanting to. But if we start off with a cube and we can then just go back across, so that's all of the components, then we just go back across into the actual pieces themselves and start to then figure out how we want this thing to then go and look. So you can then sort of start to bring in the various modules and then just attach them to any of the points that you sort of see in through this other side. So if we sort of started back in there, for example, and then just kept on adding bits and pieces into it, this is look more of a space station than what we're looking at through there. But you get the idea anyway. And then there's just heaps and heaps of stuff in through here that you can sort of start to add in. So if we think, oh, that's very, very different scale, usually you've got to come out a little bit. And so these components, you may want to actually just ramp the scale right up to sort of make it more sense of what's actually going on. And then just sort of tweak as required to sort of get the overall look that you're looking for. And you just keep on adding more and more and more pieces in, with whatever you're doing. Go and click on that one, change the symmetry, rotate. The offset. proportional scaling. Make it much narrower. You get the idea. Anyway, you can really just go to town, and there will be, as I say, a lot of people actually do this and then build fleets of ships that you can actually then go and download and use. So look out for when the workshop does become available, because there will be some pretty amazing designs done. If the previous versions of the game are anything to go on, there's a lot of people who love making themed designs. So you'll find your Star Trek designs, your Star Wars designs, the whole lot, and they should all be packaged up so you can sort of just plug them into your game, load them in, and away you go. And it really is very, very cool. Like with what they've got, there's just so much in this. With the scope of what they actually. I mean, it's not looking great with that one there, but you get the idea anyway. It is a very, very nice builder that the game actually does have, and so yeah, as I say, this is a very, very nice thing that they built it for. I think GALCIV 2 was when they introduced it, and I still remember having fun with it back then, but it's just so much better now than what it ever was back at that point. It was very clunky. There's probably even keyboard commands that I'm not actually using that would be helpful to sort of play it in a particular way. Anyway, let's get back to the game. And, well, in fact, I'll probably just keep this as a themed shipbuilding episode, actually, and just leave it literally here. So I think I will actually close this episode off. It's taken a bit of time. Hopefully I've been able to explain. Actually, what we might do is I might just go through now and put into application what we actually saw. Well, we can sort of use it. we can go through through at least the way that the different sorts of weapons then work. So we'll analyze what happens in this particular fight. So if we have a look at this bomber, as we sort of saw there before, really doesn't have much going for it. It's only got a missile attack. If we have a look at our ships and look at any one of our particular ships, this one here has got, like, if I press Control Shift and then just go back up into here, I can then sort of start to see that this one has got shielding, all sorts of different things attached to it. It's got a long-range missile attack, which does a lot of damage. So this is a very, very powerful ship, this particular ship, and so we can do things at long range. This is where we have, like, the beam volley will actually then go and fire up to 2 hexes away. So I can actually go and still fire at this one at 2 hexes. The missile volley will fire up to 4 hexes away. Any kinetic damage that we have won't actually be able to fire until we're in combat, but it's more effective in combat, is sort of the way it does work. So I can actually go and kill that one off. But let's not do that. Let's just go and kill this one off just in actual combat itself. So we won't do that. Just press escape. And we're just going to right click. Because it's only a single little ship, it's not going to cause any real dramas in through there. The battle prediction's not working. Oh well. So we're going to certainly absolutely smash it. Like, we've got a combat rating of 12. These are the combination of all the different sorts of factors that we actually have in our fleet. So we have massive amounts of things we can do. We'll just watch the battle very, very quickly, and then I'll just pause it as we go, as we start to see things happen. So we know that this is a bomber, and we know that we've got, like, different fighters and things. So as we come in, let's just pause it in here. It's coming in over this other side, so we can hover over this one. This is a class of bomber. Over through our side, we have frigates. We have a couple of little ships. This is a fighter, and that's a fighter. So what should be happening here is that this one here should be targeting one of the biggest ships. So it's actually targeting the frigate in this case. I thought it should have actually. No, all of these ships are actually technically class frigate. If we had one of our cruisers in, because it's a bomber, it would target the cruiser. So that would actually be what it would go after first. But at the moment, it's just going after any of the frigates because that's the next group in line. So all we have in our side of things is just frigates all the way through and a couple of fighters. That's all we actually have. So 6 frigates and two fighters. So it will then target the biggest of the ships, which is a frigate. Our ships will all just target him, but if there were other ships in the attack, then these guys would target him anyway because they're fighters. And in fact, all of our ships would target him anyway because the first thing that all of the frigates do and all of the fighters do is to target bombers first. And so he is basically attracting everyone. Even if there was bigger ships around, all of this fleet would actually target that. If we had our cruiser in here, the cruiser would target the bigger ship and leave these guys to mask and attack this one. I wish I had one of the bigger battles to explain this with, but anyway, as we go through. Now, what we actually have with these guys, we've got the Star Eagle. I can just hover over these. We can see this one's got a beam attack, so it's got a range of 1,000. This guy here has got a missile attack, so he should launch his missiles fairly soon. Our guys backing through here, I think that these are all beam attacks. I think all of these are. Yeah, I've sort of gone that way. This one here is not. This one is a missile attack, big missile attack. So that one and this one should ultimately fire at about the same time. There they go. So the missiles are now firing. So we're actually firing away through this other side. They're firing at the frigate M31, which is. It's M32, that's it there. So this is the ISE frigate M31. And what has it got? It has got kinetic attack. So this one's using a kinetic attack. So it's got to get in very, very close, but the fighter craft will get in there first. And so it actually has an evasion factor of 2. This one has got an attack of 3. So if there's a hit, we'll wait until we see what actually happens with this. So they're coming through. Now, what's actually happened with this one, the Venge frigate, which is this one that we had a look at through there that was firing the missiles, has got a weapon where the attack potential is 35.7, but it actually, what it did do was it's got 25 there. Why is it 25? Damage 3.4, range 5,000, cooldown of 6. And so it's actually gone after this one. The distance was 4,700 by the time it actually did it. Yeah, sorry, this one did 25 damage. It's got a potential of up to 35.7. So a dice is rolled, like a random number is generated between 1 and 35.7. And the number it rolled was 25. And so 25 was then applied against whatever armor had been applied on the actual ship itself. And so if we have a look, we can't see it there, but it didn't have any actual protection. So all of that damage was just straight through there, and basically the damage was that it was destroyed. In this case, it actually missed with its missile. So it actually had an attack potential of 6.5 ultimately, but we also then had protections in through here as well. So we would have been able to then roll against the protection, and that would have then, but in this case it missed anyway. It just didn't even get to hit. So it was inaccurate. Smack, bang, done. So that's just, I tried to explain it. I'll do a better job of this as we get deeper into the actual fights, and we'll sort of maybe digest it once we get one of the cruisers back in, but we'll do that in a future episode. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I will leave it here. Again, remember there's a link in the description, and again, thanks to Stardock for sponsoring this particular series. I've been thoroughly enjoying playing it. I'll catch you next time.